Hey everyone, happy Friday. My name's Jake Tonkel. I'm running for San Jose City Council, and I'm here with Ketzal Gomez, who's running for Santa Clara County Board of Education. Thank you for joining us, Ketzal.
Thank you for having me.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the Board of Education seat you're running for, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'd like to first off just tell everybody happy Pride. It is Silicon Valley Pride this weekend. But to tell you a little bit about myself, I am running for Santa Clara County Board of Education, Trustee Area 4, as a proud product of San Jose Public Schools, both traditional and charter. I'm a lifetime Democrat who has worked hard to make sure that all voices are at the table. And part of why I'm running is because I think it's time to have populations that I represent at the table for the decisions that are being made at the board.
Awesome. And what decisions get made at the Board of Education?
Yeah, so people get a little bit confused with what does the Board of Education do, right? So it is at the county level. And so it's a little bit bigger than traditional local school boards. And there's over 30 districts that we oversee. But there's a couple of programming that directly the Board of Education does, and is kind of where my heart really lies. So the first one is for justice-involved kids. So those are the kids who are at the ranch, at juvenile hall, who are impacted by the system. And in my day job, I work on policy that affects these kids, specifically girls and gender nonconforming youth. This has been one of my passions for my whole life, particularly because I have had family that are system involved, and it really affects the Latino community. So that's one of the things that they oversee. Another thing that they oversee is special education. And as a former special ed student, I believe that there are a couple things, especially access, that we really need to make better for our working class families. It was really hard for my family to advocate for me to get the resources I needed. And I wasn't diagnosed until I was in 7th grade. And so that's, halfway through my K through 12th journey that I did not receive what I needed. And part of it was because it was really difficult to get access to those things. And so part of it is that I really want to make special ed more accessible to all families. Some other things that they oversee is our Migrant Ed Program. As a daughter of a farm worker, this is something that I know we need to have access to for our migrant families. And we actually oversee, I believe it's 5 counties' Migrant Ed programs. And so it's a big responsibility. And then we also oversee a couple of charter schools. And so as someone who's attended charter schools, I think I would bring a very unique perspective. I don't believe there's any school board member in the local or in the county level who has been elected that has attended a charter school. And so I think, charters have been around long enough. We are adults now who have attended these systems, and I think it's time for us to be at the table.
Well, I just want to say congratulations for jumping in. As people may not know, Ketzal's been doing some amazing work. Years ago, we ran into each other as she was planning May Day for the city of San Jose, and excited to have her running and excited to be in kind of a step-in-step process here. A lot of Ketzal's district is huge, but a large portion of it overlaps with District 6. And so that collaboration is really important. And being able to talk about what happens at City Hall that's going to affect the Board of Education and vice versa, and have open and honest dialogue. And that's why I'm super excited. Last week, a bunch of us got together, Ketzal, myself included, and rolled out our first step towards universal childcare in the city of San Jose. And wanted to throw it to Ketzal. Ketzal, for you and your position, what is that? Why is it really crucial, and what do you think it's going to do to impact students that you might oversee?
Yeah, so I would start with, universal childcare isn't something that is new, isn't something that, is only needed right now because we're living a pandemic. It is highlighted that it is a need for working families, but it is something that, because I work at the Office of Women's Policy, we know that traditionally childcare does fall on women. And that is something that people shouldn't have to make the choice between having to stay at home because you can't afford childcare or going to work. And for a lot of working class women, a minimum wage job is not going to be enough to cover for childcare. And so specifically in Silicon Valley, this is something that we should be providing for our working families. And then with the pandemic, we have seen that parents have become both teacher, both parent, both everything, right? So we need to make sure that our parents are not having to decide whether they go to work or they're there to support their child during this new educational experience. And so that's why when you asked for us to come together to like advocate for this, it was like, definitely, this is something that we need now, and it's something that we'll always need.
I think that's a crucial piece for me as well, is COVID has certainly highlighted things that we should have been doing in the past and that were very big stressors for families, but it never really, I would say, for lack of a better word, trickled into everyone else's perspective until you started to realize that there were workers that were choosing to leave their kids at home alone or were choosing not to come into work. And now during COVID, choosing not to get back into the workforce as we're trying to boost an economic recovery, it makes it really complicated. And so I did a big dive last night because we have a map for Santa Clara County by zip code that talks about how many childcare spaces there are and then how many children are in need. So as I go through, and I don't have your whole district mapped out, Ketzal, but it was pretty similar across the board. The 3 districts for District 6, they have 60 to 80 childcare spaces available. And this can be, a small in-home childcare facility or a little bit larger, but there's 1,000 children in each of these zip codes that qualify and could need universal childcare. And we've only got 80 slots. Mm-hmm. And so one of the exciting parts is childcare it's an awesome profession, being able to help kids grow and learn and be there to care for them and build those relationships. And as we look towards shifting what kind of economy we want and what jobs we value and who we value in our community, pushing towards an economic recovery that's taking care of children, I thought was a really exciting piece of this as well.
Definitely.
So we've got that we're overlapping on, which is first, hopefully, of many future collaborations that we have. I did want to open it up to you as well to talk a little bit more about the special needs classes that go on and how that impacts families and how that impacts both the schools you might oversee and then any other programs that are available.
Yeah, so right now in COVID, we know that distance learning isn't the ideal for any student, right? But it is what is required right now to keep our students, our staff, and our teachers safe. We know that there's an extra burden for students with learning disabilities. And, it's something that I struggle with. I personally know the difficulties of having a learning disability and going through traditional school and how much I struggled. And I can't imagine trying to spend 4 to 6 hours a day on a screen and not having that support, right? And so, but I completely understand why we are distance learning. I completely understand, with the health order in place and with the safety of our families, it's something that we need. And so I haven't been able to really figure out what the solution is or what has been the result of helping these special ed students in this time of distance learning and COVID, but it is something that is at the top of my priority, trying to figure out, what does that mean? What does this additional help look like? I know that we have not had the chance to really dive deep, there's a lot of issues that keep on coming to the top, like feeding our families. The local districts have done a really important job to maintaining that relationship with the families. But as we stay in place longer, these things are like really devastating that we haven't addressed. And so I'm not currently sure what is in place for these students and these families around special ed and how we're supporting them additionally. I have heard from parents directly the frustrations that they're going through, but I'm not sure what's in place right now with COVID and special ed.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's in place for everything. I mean, that's one of the big challenges we're having. And one of the things that I know you're going to do an awesome job of as well is that outreach, listening to parents, trying to figure out what is going on for them, because that's certainly been a challenging point for the city as well through this process, is who needs help and how do we get it to them. Traditionally, our elected offices, and they work by listening to the loudest voices that are out there, the people that know how to navigate the system and come to you. And I know myself included, but certainly, a big piece in just who you are is reaching out to people that don't necessarily know how to navigate the system, that aren't the loudest voices in the room, so that we can lift up other voices. I wanted to, one, just say that to compliment you because you're amazing, but two, then hear, what are some more things you're hearing from parents, from, people around the race you're in that you really want to start to implement so we have a more inclusive community?
Definitely. So one thing that is hard not to talk about is the digital divide, right? And being in Silicon Valley, there's really no reason why we should have any child that does not have access to the internet and to technology. But actually, the conversation needs to be broader than that, because even if you have the resources to have technology and have internet, your quality is very different if you're in North County versus South County. And I believe that the conversation, which has already begun, is having a county-wide broadband network, that somehow we are helping provide this resources to everyone, not just because you're part of a school district who's decided to invest in hotspots, or you're part of a network that is going to figure this out. This is a responsibility of everybody. And there has been good partnerships between county and city and Board of Education and the local school districts, but there needs to be a solution that works for everybody. And part of it is, having a broadband network that is quality for everybody.
I would agree. And I think, again, it's why I'm excited you're taking on the level of County Board of Education, because we do have multiple school boards that go in and out. And if you ever looked at the district lines, they are certainly very weird. And so we need that leadership at the county level that kind of can pull on those school boards at the same time and say, hey, this is what San Jose Unified is doing. This is what Allen Rock's doing. This is what Campbell's doing. Let's get you guys synced up and moving in the same direction. Because, District 6 specifically, and I'll talk about District 6 the most because that's where I'm running. Yep. But, we have two districts, school districts that this really encompasses. It's Campbell and it's San Jose. And they do things very differently. I'll talk to other people on San Jose Unified School Board and the struggles they're facing in dealing with the digital divide or dealing with food outreach. And then Campbell will have an entirely different set of problems, which is awesome that they are unique in their own ways and they have people that are listening to that. But I think you're totally right. We need some leadership that can reach in and communicate effectively with people. So again, excited to have you running for this seat. What does the district look like for you? I mean, where does it start? Where does it end? How many people are there? Just kind of lay out how big this really is.
Yes. So I don't think I fully comprehended how large it was when I was like, I'm excited, I'm going to do this, because I've worked on many of campaigns from school board level all the way to state assembly level. And when I looked at the numbers and how big this space was, I was a little intimidated, but also was like a challenge that like I'm willing to work towards. And so we have about 150,000 voters. And to put that a little bit in perspective, it's about a seventh of the county, because there's 7 seats that makes up the whole county. And if you look at the area, so what I've gotten people to comprehend the area visually the most is talking about, if you know San Jose school districts, it's basically all of San Jose unified, as north San Jose, as south as Almaden Valley. We hit Willow Glen, and we also go as east as part of Oak Grove School District. And so it's a very large area with many different communities and many different needs. But at the same time, it's like, you know, there's some core issues that hit everybody. And seeing COVID and how it's affecting our communities, you know, the silver lining is that we are coming together as a community and we are taking care of each other. And even though this area is so big and so diverse, I do believe that we have more in common than different.
Well, I'll throw my last question, which is, before I invite everybody to our awesome event tomorrow, is there anything you want to leave people with as they're watching this?
I just want to say that I am so excited to see our community coming out and coming together. You know, when I think about campaigning under COVID, it is something that, you know, no one is prepared to do. And even, you know, you've been campaigning since the primary, and this is completely different, right? And so I am just in awe of how much community has come out already. And we've come out strong, and we've come out ready to make changes. Because, you know, during a crisis, that's when we need leaders the most. And the leaders that have arise to the occasion, we're ready to do this.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Ketzal. I'm excited for this partnership tomorrow. I've got this cool little ticker. You can join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. or at 12 at the Hester School off the Alameda. Follow bit.ly/JT_KG_lit. Help us drop lit to neighbors. You can help 2 awesome candidates, me and Ketzal, at the same time, because so much of our district overlaps. We're going to go out and crush it tomorrow and have a good time, and then hopefully be back Sunday as well. As she said, COVID campaigning is tough. And generally, the best way to connect with people is one-on-one conversations. It's door-to-door. But what we can do right now is get needed information into people's hands, make sure that they're aware this is a seat that's going to impact their lives, whether it's city council, whether it's school board, whether it's county board of education. These races matter, and we want to give everyone the opportunity to make an informed decision. So if you're available tomorrow, check it out, follow the bit.ly, and join us. We'll be excited to have you. Other than that, happy Friday, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.